All right, let's get right into it. We're going on a mission today, diving deep into this incredible, kind of invisible world of wastewater treatment. And we're going to meet the tiny soldiers who are doing all the heavy lifting to keep our water clean. You know, it seems like a simple question, right? But the answer? Wow. It's this fascinating journey into a high-tech biological battleground that's happening, believe it or not, right, in your own community, 24/7. So yeah, where does it all go? Okay, so every single time you flush a toilet or wash something down the drain, that water starts a journey to a treatment facility. But here's the thing, the water that shows up there isn't just water. Nope. It's carrying a pretty big, hidden challenge. And this is the heart of the problem. You see, this wastewater, it's not just, dirty. It's more like a super rich cocktail of pollutants. And if we just dumped that straight into a river, it would be a disaster. The organic stuff would literally suck all the oxygen out of the water, and all those nutrients, they'd trigger these huge algae blooms that would just devastate the entire ecosystem. So that's the problem. How in the world do you fight something that complex? Well, you might think we just blast it with harsh chemicals, but that's not the first line of defense at all. Instead, we do something way smarter. We recruit an army. A massive army of microorganisms that's, get this, been doing this exact job for over 100 years. Now, the official name for this microbe army is activated sludge. Sounds a little weird, right? But the key word here is activated. It's not just some random soup of microbes floating around. No, they form what's called a flock. Basically, they clump together into these amazing little biological communities that work as a team to literally trap and then digest the pollutants. And just look at this. This is what that living engine actually looks like up close. I mean, at first glance, it might not look like much, but what you're really seeing is a bustling metropolis of life. Every single one of those little organisms has a very specific job to do on this mission to clean our water. So let's meet the troops, shall we? First up, you've got your saprotrophic bacteria. These guys are the heavy lifters, the infantry, breaking down all the big organic pollutants. Then you've got the protozoa and rotifers. Think of them as the special forces, the polishers and the cleanup crew. They go after the smaller particles and any stray bacteria to make the water absolutely crystal clear. It's a perfectly balanced ecosystem, all working together. All right, so every good army needs a headquarters, right? A base of operations. Well, for our microbe army, that base is the aeration tank. This is the arena. This is where the real battle against pollution is fought and won. The whole mission basically follows this simple, continuous loop. First, everything gets mixed together in the aeration tank, the wastewater, our microbe army, and a whole lot of oxygen. Then that mix flows into a settling tank, which is also called a clarifier. Here, all the heavy sludge, our microbes, sinks to the bottom, leaving clean water on top. And this is the really genius part. A big chunk of that sludge, our veteran microbes, gets sent right back to the beginning. It's called Return Activated Sludge, or RAS, and it makes sure there's always a strong, battle-ready army waiting for the next wave. And that quote just nails it, doesn't it? The magic of biological wastewater treatment. Because it's so true. It's not just a big tank of water. It's a living, breathing bioreactor. We're giving millions of these microorganisms the absolute perfect conditions to thrive, all the food they can eat from the wastewater, and all the air they need to breathe. We're just letting them do what they do best. But of course, giving them all that air, well, that comes at a pretty steep cost. Pumping all that oxygen into these massive tanks is by far the single most energy-hungry process in the entire treatment plant. We're talking 45 to 60% of a plant's total energy bill, just for aeration. That is absolutely huge. So you can see why getting that oxygen transfer as efficient as possible is absolutely critical. And there are basically two ways to do it. You've got coarse bubble systems. Think of big, clunky bubbles like you'd get from a fish tank bubbler. They rise really fast, so they don't transfer much oxygen. But then you have fine bubble systems. These create teeny tiny bubbles that rise super slowly, which maximizes their contact time with the water and, you guessed it, transfers oxygen way, way more efficiently. Let's just look at the numbers for a second. This chart shows something called Standard Aeration Efficiency, or SAE. Really, it's just a simple way of saying, how much bang for your buck do you get? You know, how much oxygen is transferred for the energy you put in? And look at that difference. Fine bubble systems are more than twice as efficient. So if you're a plant manager trying to cut costs and be more sustainable, the choice here is, well, it's a no-brainer. Okay, so fine bubble diffusers are great. We've got an efficient way to deliver the air. But how do we make sure we're delivering the exact right amount of air at the exact right time? That's the next level. And that's where modern technology completely changes the game, turning this 100-year-old process into a super smart, data-driven machine. And check this out. This is the brains of the whole operation. This is not your granddad's treatment plant, that's for sure. You've got these high-tech dissolved oxygen sensors right in the tanks, constantly sending real-time data to a central controller. And that controller, the brain, automatically adjusts the blowers and valves to perfectly match the oxygen supply with what the Microbe Army actually needs at any given moment. Because their appetite, it changes all day long. And here's the proof in the pudding. Just look at the difference. On the left, that's what it looks like with manual control. See those wild swings? It's totally chaotic. You're either wasting energy by pumping in too much oxygen, or you're starving the microbes by not giving them enough. But look at the right. That's after they switched to an automated system. It's incredibly stable, rock solid, and right on target. The keyword here is precision. So what does all that fancy precision actually mean in the real world? Well, it means money. Big money. At one facility, the Upper Blackstone plant in Massachusetts, just by upgrading their control systems, they saw a net annual savings of $186,000 every single year. And get this, the savings didn't stop with the energy bill. Because they had better oxygen control, the whole biological process just worked better. It was healthier. And that allowed the plant to cut way back on something called supplemental carbon. That's a really expensive chemical they add to help the microbes get rid of nitrogen. They cut its use by a whopping 73%. It just goes to show you one smart upgrade can create these huge positive ripple effects through the entire system. All right, so our Microbe Army did its job. The water is clean, mission accomplished, high fives all around. But the story isn't quite over yet. There's one more chapter. You have to remember, this is a living, breathing system. And just like any living system, things can get complicated. The plant operators are kind of like microbe psychologists, They're always dealing with new challenges. Sometimes they get a problem called sludge bulking. That's when the whole army gets fluffy and just refuses to settle. It's a disaster. Or they'll have to fight these nasty foaming events. It takes some serious skill to keep this army happy and healthy. And that brings us back to that final, brilliant step in the loop, the return-activated sludge. A healthy portion of that settled sludge gets sent right back to the front lines, into the aeration tank. This makes sure that your strongest, most experienced veteran microbes are always there, ready to train the new recruits and lead the charge against the next wave of wastewater. The army lives on to fight another day. So there you have it, from a simple flush of a toilet all the way to a complex, high-tech automated ecosystem. The whole activated sludge process is just an amazing testament to the power of working with nature, not against it. We've taken an idea that's over a century old and turned it into this modern, data-driven marvel of efficiency. And it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What's the next frontier in our mission to protect our planet's most vital resource?